invite Laura to the stage.
Thank you. All right, guys. How is everyone? We are going to invite up our next panel. We are going to bring up Kevin Fleece with GBTA. He is the Chief Marketing Officer there. And Beth West with BTN. All right, and Mark Meter with ASTA. All right, guys. So why don't we go down the row and you guys tell us about your organization and your mission and your influence over the travel industry.
Absolutely. Thanks, Laura, and thanks, World Travel, for having us here today. We're super excited about our partnership with World Travel. So my name is Kevin Fleece. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. Yes, I'm responsible for marketing, but also our research team, education, and global communications. I've been fortunate enough to be with the organization in a short 9 months, and I think I joined at a spectacular time as the industry is really riding this wave of growth. The way we influence the industry is through learning, community, and advocacy. So we have a huge education component. Some of you may have taken courses through GBTA. Of course, we run our annual convention, which will be in Atlanta this year in July. And then we do a lot of work on Capitol Hill as well as in the UK and Europe around issues that matter to this industry. So thrilled to be here and to talk more about it.
Awesome, thank you. Beth?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and to World Travel for hosting this symposium. I think it's a great opportunity for us all to get together and learn and network and have a little bit of fun. So thank you for hosting. At Business Travel News, our mission is to keep the industry informed. And we do that in a lot of different ways. We do that through our journalism and reporting. We do that through events. We do that through education platforms. We do that through identifying influencers in our industry and making sure that those great minds have airtime and play in your lives and help you to do the best at your job and to be smarter about how to navigate through this industry, which, as we learned in our last panel, is changing, difficult, and challenging. Flux was the word. Yeah, so we're here to sort of open the doors to all of that, to explain it, to report on all the different ways that the industry is evolving. And I know that impacts everyone in this room.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to World Travel so much for inviting me and as the representative for ASTA, the American Society of Travel Advisors. How many of you have heard of ASTA? Raise your hand. Wow, good. How many of you are members of ASTA? Almost as many. Very good. I'm proud of you. So I'm Mark Meter, the Senior VP of Industry Affairs and Education at ASTA, and our mission at the organization is really to support and advocate for the travel agency community. That's agencies of all shapes and sizes, from the smallest independent contractors all the way up to the more mid-sized agencies, and then the large TMCs, and even OTAs, the online travel agencies as well. We also support the travel supplier community and the traveling public. So we spend a great amount of time on Capitol Hill. As many of you may know, we have our annual Legislative Day program every year where we literally bring in the grassroots of our organization to Washington, D.C., which is where I'm based, and we descend on Capitol Hill where we push for the certain issues and regulations that are important to the agency community. So we are, again, supporters of everybody in this room, from every agency of every size, from consumers, suppliers, et cetera. Happy to be here today. Thanks, Laura.
Awesome, thank you all. So we've seen a little bit of change, as we heard on the last panel, a little bit of flux in our industry over the past few years. So how do you and your outlet manage change in the industry? You guys can go in whatever order you want.
You want me to start? I'm happy to kick it off.
Sure,
Shall I?
kick us off.
So, you know, I hate saying this, but during the course of the pandemic, that's the period of time, frankly, where organizations like ASTA truly shine. We come up literally come up to the table and take a seat at the table. The table being so important, and that table could be on Capitol Hill, it could be within the industry, et cetera, because frankly, if you don't have a seat at the table, those that do will eat your lunch. So we are there to again represent everyone of importance, but things like during the course of the pandemic where so much disruption occurred, advocating for things like the PPP loans, payroll protection loans, and other forms of government benefits that were so integral to keeping the organization alive and running and focused were key and a big part of what we did alongside our grassroots population. Also working with and supporting our agency community, which from ASTA's perspective, our membership actually grew tremendously during the pandemic because of the need for support, our agencies needing support. So that was kind of a silver lining for us because it was very beneficial, but at the same time, it's also because it was so key and important to represent the agency community within the government, ranks of the government, and the industry as a whole.
That's great.
Yeah, we had a really similar experience, and you know, Business Travel News is not an association. We are a news outlet and a media company, but our audience is business travel buyers primarily, and that is the community that we serve. And like our ASTA colleagues, our platforms, our networks, our information outlets were more important than ever and will be more important than ever during these times of significant change. The pandemic was one sort of crisis moment that caused much change in our industry and an acute change. But ongoing, the challenges of technology, the challenges of work at home, the challenges of sustainability, all of these new aspects of our jobs, day-to-day experience in travel and managed travel, they come together in the communities and in the information channels that we provide that report on what ASTA is doing, that report on what GBTA is doing, so that we can get the word out to our industry and you can be more informed about and forming your own opinions about the best direction forward for your organizations, whether you're a travel buyer, which is primarily our audience, but also as a supplier, as an agency. And we really hope that we speak to everyone and provide those platforms and networks that you can know about one another so you can work better together.
You know what, if I can, before Kevin
Yeah.
speaks about this is the perfect example of where the work that we do, and I'm sure it's the same for GBTA, we can do all the work that there is needed, but if it's not accurately reported on and nobody knows, so that's where the alignment between the media and the advocacy organizations, I think, fall nicely together.
It's a really symbiotic relationship. And of course, with suppliers and everyone else in this room, it's really our job as a media outlet and as a news outlet to understand the issues, report on the news factually, and provide the analysis that we're seeing the trends and the changes in the industry. And I hope that we're doing a wonderful job of that, not only in the U.S. market, which historically has been our core market, but at our new Business Travel News Europe, we are also working very hard to understand and analyze that geographic region as well, and all of the nuances that come along with it.
Yeah, I would echo all of that, and I would say coming out of the pandemic, it just forced everybody to look inward and figure out how do you need to reinvent yourself as an organization. We also went through a bit of leadership upheaval around the time of the pandemic, and we brought in new leadership. Suzanne Neufang, who's our CEO, is at another event today, so I have the pleasure of sitting in this seat for her. But what we really did was just listen to our members in the industry, and we try to continuously do that. So we did a big rebrand about 2 years ago, and what we heard from our buyers, which are principally our members as well, we have about 8,000 members of GBTA, was that they wanted more transparency. They really wanted us to lean into learning and providing research and information. How do we navigate this pandemic? And so we really became kind of a trusted resource for that information. We publish an annual study called the Business Travel Index, which when we ran it 2 years ago, we forecast that the industry would not come back to full recovery, 2019 levels, until 2026. when we reran it this year, we're looking at it coming back to full recovery next year. So we're continuously looking at the industry, how it's changing, how it's evolving, and putting that information back out. So that's how we view ourselves, really sort of factual research first, and really listening to all of you as our members to help guide us in terms of where the industry is headed.
Can I just say that I think the GBTA has done an amazing job in reinventing itself, and I know that during the pandemic, it was a really tough time, and I have so enjoyed and respected the way that GBTA has come into its own, and the new leadership is fantastic, and I
Great
just
new leadership
really
and so many,
appreciate
yeah, it's great. It's
how
been super.
amazing that work has been. So
Well,
hats off
thank
to
you. That's very gratifying. I appreciate it. How many of you have been to GBTA conventions since we're doing a show of hands? About half. How many of you are GBTA members? Wow, almost the same number. So I like to say GBTA is more than convention. Oftentimes it's synonymous with the event, but it's really gratifying to see how many of you are engaged.
Awesome. All right, so what do you see as the difference between reporting, opinion, and advocacy, and how do you differentiate between them?
We can
you. Want me to take this one
please,
first?
yeah, that
Okay.
makes a lot of sense.
I want to talk about reporting and journalism first. Obviously, that's the piece of this that's nearest and dearest to my heart. As a news outlet, BTN certainly wants to provide a full story and factually based stories. But I think the difference between opinion and analysis, or opinion and reporting, is that we need to acknowledge the arguments that are against and for a certain issue, and we need to report both viewpoints. I think with an opinion and the facts that inform those activities and viewpoints. With an opinion, I think you need to have an informed opinion, but you don't necessarily have to represent another side. And advocacy takes that even a step further, so that opinion becomes a group philosophy that then goes into action. And I think that is kind of the progression, and I'm sure you guys can fill
Sure,
in
yeah.
more, but I think that's the progression of what you kind of see here on the panel today, and where we focus our influence to inform, to provide educated opinions and guidance, versus going all the way to advocacy, which BTN, I would say, does not do. We do not have an advocacy organization. We fall into reporting, and then we also have our opinion-based material that we publish that is open to anyone who wants to submit opinions, but I don't always accept all of them. They need to be, not the opinion itself, it needs to be well backed up.
I think it's interesting, that's right, but there is certainly overlap or indirectly ties between all three, reporting, opinion, and advocacy. I think on our side, from an ASTA perspective, we don't report on any of the above as Beth and BTN do. We do have an obligation, though, from an opinion perspective, to evaluate, if you will, the facts and to reach conclusions that are supportive of the facts. But at the same time, we have a constituency that we are there to support as well. That's where I think the uniqueness starts to pop in, where we are going to support and take the side of our agency members. We at ASTA do a lot of research, both from a survey perspective, focus groups, et cetera, to determine what are the right items for us to focus on, but also what is the right sentiment. What is the sentiment of our members in general, so that what we end up supporting is indeed representative of our membership. And then we advocate, whether that is with travel suppliers, whether that is with Capitol Hill or the administration, the U.S. White House, et cetera. We advocate as appropriate, in hopes that then the likes of Beth and BTN will report on it. We know in a non-biased way, but we hope that our story is the right one, or the right answer.
And we've certainly been
Yes.
publishing some ASTA commentary on things like NDC
Yep,
and
yep.
some of the
Many
activities
things,
you've been
which
doing.
we greatly
Yeah,
appreciate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, so we kind of view ourselves as Switzerland, very agnostic when it comes to what's going on in the business travel space. And our goal is to kind of keep the industry informed as to what's going on. I would say we're more of a newsmaker or a provider of data than we are a reporting firm. We do aggregate what's happening in the industry and we push that out to all of our constituents every day through kind of a daily newsletter, but we don't actually have a journalistic arm. We do spend a lot of time in advocacy, and if any of you have ever been to a legislative summit, and it sounds like Mark Asta, you do the same thing on Capitol Hill. It's the highest Net Promoter Score event we run, and it's because it's all volunteer led. It's GBTA members who descend on Capitol Hill. We use the same language in an organized and thoughtful way to go and lobby their elected officials to advance change, and whether that's making border crossing more frictionless or improving visa processing times, it's incredibly powerful. So we do that every summer in July or June. I would say our emphasis is on research and advocacy, and we leave the opinion and the reporting to the professionals, the media organizations like BTN.
Thank you.
All right, so as Beth said, it's kind of a progression, all of those. So let's take that progression one step further and let's expand it to education also. So how do you see your organization educating all of the travel buyers in front of us?
I'll jump in first if I may. You know, what we have learned and heard and felt during the course of the pandemic is, and this is perhaps indirectly related to the buyer perspective, but nevertheless important, there is a huge, gigantic shortfall of travel advisors, knowledgeable, educated travel advisors that can indeed fulfill the need and obligation of travel agencies for buyers, for corporate travel, for leisure travel as well. It's major and very significant. So in order to be able to fully support the buyer community, we really need to have a strong influx of educated advisors that fit the bill. ASTA has evolved a new educational program, or redefining its existing educational program, which really is meant to provide a pathway from those that are considering a position or a job as a travel advisor, all the way up to those that are more than considering it, but ready to enter it through certain what we call roadmap modules, to a mentorship program, a job board where agencies, TMCs, and other agencies can list their jobs to be able to fulfill the weakness in terms of lack of skill. You know, during the pandemic, frankly, a lot of people said it's too complicated now. A lot of travel advisors said this is too hard, it's too complicated. Now's my time to retire. Now's my time to sell my business or to move on to something new and different. That's great, because I think in many cases, many of those people were happy, but in the end, it left a lot of vacancy. So we are very intent and focused on indeed that development. One of the key pieces that, you heard me mention a roadmap course that we've evolved, and it's a roadmap that applies to any advisor new to the industry or even as a refresher. But there's also a new module created specifically for corporate travel that I'm proud to say is extraordinarily detailed in terms of what the requirements are. We spent a lot of time, effort, and energy creating it with experts within the industry who helped us to pull that together. And we're told by other TMCs who have endorsed it that it is really the only educational feature that is available today. So we're proud of doing that, to bring the corporate agency kind of in line to where it really needs to be, to fill positions that are vacant in order to be able to support better the buyer community.
Yeah.
Sure. So education is integral to what we do. Like I said, our three pillars are learning, community, and advocacy. So we have a GBTA Academy. Some of you have possibly been through some of the courses. It starts with fundamentals of business travel management, and then it kind of escalates from there up through advanced principles and more strategic corporate travel management. The fundamentals of business travel management class is available to anyone for free who is a member of GBTA. So we run those several times a year. And then at our major events like convention, we have tons of educational programming. I think we had 100 education sessions in Dallas this year. And then we're continuously, I guess the third part of this is we're continuously publishing new information just to keep the industry apprised of what's going on. Some of the things we focus on are business trends, pricing forecasts, where's the industry headed overall from a macroeconomic standpoint. But we also do a lot of research and white papers on topics like sustainability in travel, which we know is an emerging topic of importance for most everyone, as well as what does the next generation of this travel workforce look like? How do we replenish the positions? We all know that there's a supply issue in terms of so many vacancies in the hospitality and leisure sector, not only for travel advisors, but across the spectrum. So we do a lot of research into what does that look like. So it's through those various mechanisms, in-person training, online training through our hub, in-person events and education, and this publishing of information that we're constantly trying to get it out there. I think the key is, what we're trying to do is adapt those topics based on what the industry is interested in. And so it's a dynamic industry, it's constantly changing, and that's why all of you as travel buyers and travel professionals really inform what we will be looking at in 2024 and beyond.
If I could jump into that, Kevin, one thing I wanted to say that I think is really important in case I want it to be clear and to all, ASTA and GBTA have a fantastic working relationship together and complement, I think, each other in terms of what we offer and really fill the gap in terms of so many needs, whether it's education, advocacy, et cetera. So we are completely aligned along the way, spend a lot of time with Suzanne and team often, and as you can imagine, we often speak in terms of how we might mutually determine to support an issue or not support an issue in order to keep that alignment flowing.
Yeah, there are plenty of topics to tackle, and that's kind of the great thing. It's similar to that triumvirate on the previous panel. I kind of view it the same way. ASTA, GBTA, BTN as a media partner. We work, I think, all towards the greater good in terms of how do we elevate this industry.
A lot of people think of ASTA as being the leisure-focused association. I would argue that that's not completely true. We are focused on every travel advisor of every segment. We do have a tremendous focus on the leisure arm that GBTA does not, but we do have our focus on the corporate travel piece is big, key, and important, and that's where that alignment between us, I think, comes in nicely.
Yeah, and I think that really, it really complements that whole industry arc of how to advocate on the behalf of everyone. Yes. So for BTN, again, we don't do that kind of advocacy, but we do a lot of education, and we have a lot of different entryways for that education as well. So we do have a huge conference arm at BTN, and we do about 50 events a year across Europe and the US. We actually also did hold an event in Singapore this year, so we're experimenting a little bit with some new geographies. But our view of education is a little bit different than the larger events in our industry. We really provide these small, intimate, go to your location type of event. So it's easier for the travel buyers in that geography to come and attend for a day. And we hope that that provides a little bit of a different experience and a little bit of a different value than some of the other opportunities, education opportunities in the industry. So I think that's one way that we really deliver education and encourage education in our industry. I think another way is just through the activity of reporting what's happening in our industry. And one of my favorite times of year is the summer, and then again in December, when we really do a deep dive into travel buyers who have done amazing things within their own programs, amazing things that have impacted our industry. So our Travel Manager of the Year award and our best practitioners, and any time of year where we see and come to understand that there's a program out there doing something innovative, impactful, and effective, we want to get that story out. And of all the things that we do at BTN, I think that going deep dive in with buyers who are doing really important and amazing things with their travel programs, whether it's technology, whether it's a rescue effort, or one of our recent Travel Managers of the Year, which was based on a payment program. So word to the payment programs out there, they can be very innovative and facilitate a lot of things, but but this travel manager was very involved in a COVID housing project in California and used that skill of virtual payment and understanding the hotel and hospitality industry to deliver a program to California. So those are the ways that travel managers are using their really incredible skills and knowledge to better the world. And most recently, we've done a lot of technology-based innovation stories and all of those things that are emerging in our industry that will become best practices that right now are next practices. We want to bring those to you and educate you in that way. And then I think the other thing that we do some special projects at BTN, and one thing that we've had in the industry for probably 30 years, although I'm not quite sure exactly how many years we've been publishing it, at least 25. We have something that's called the Business Travel Buyer's Handbook. And we've been plopping that on your desk for so many years. But this year we have turned that into an online education platform, not just for travel buyers, but for anyone who would like to access it. It's called BTN Academy. So it's not very original in the name, I will say. I've learning about a lot of academies recently as soon as we went out with this. But in any case, it's a great online resource, and it has 11 modules right now, anywhere from creating a policy to taking on travel risk management or taking on meetings management. And so lots of different modules in between those two extremes. And it's an opportunity for self-paced online learning, and not to plug it too much, but it's new, it's totally free, and it's self-paced, so you can kind of do your own thing, pick the pieces that you want to use, and do a deep dive. So yeah, encourage you to use that. But those are the three ways that we really want to educate the industry.
That's awesome, thank you. And as you can see, there's so much education out there at your fingertips that it's really what you put into it, you're gonna get out of it. GBTA, ASTA, BTN, providing all of this, it's all there for you. So it's really...
I want to say one more thing. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. So I actually bemoan the fact that there is not a corporate travel sort of program at hospitality schools. There is not an organized education track for corporate travel. And I do think that is something that as an industry we should push more for in the higher education community. And I think it's been on our minds for many years, but maybe because of the pandemic we haven't been able to kind of find our footing there. But that's something I personally would like
Sure.
to advocate for, though I can't do it on BTN's
You know what,
behalf.
if I can add to that, the good news is, Beth, in keeping with that, not only have we at ASTA been approaching various colleges and universities on, especially their hospitality track, where none of that really exists today. Frankly, the travel advisor function, corporate, leisure, or any other way, isn't there. But in addition to that, in addition to our approaching them, they're now coming to us to say, how can we add to our curriculum in ways that don't exist today, because we think that there's a big opportunity. So there is the start of recognition out there from, I think, colleges and universities that we intend to push forward and capitalize on, which I think is a really good thing, because again, education is so key and fundamental to the agency and buyer world.
Yeah, 2 points on that. If you were here at the Global Forum yesterday, you heard Pam Zager talk about our World Travel University that we just launched with training those travel agents and bringing them up. And I think that's so important. And it is funny, I went to school for hospitality management, and it was all restaurants and hotels. And I'm like, corporate travel, what's a TMC?
Right.
What is this? What are you talking about? So they don't focus on it. It's very important.
Laura, if I can jump in on that, because I think an important point for everyone to think about and realize is, you've heard all of us talk about education and where it should lie and who does it. Clearly, GBTA has a program, ASTA has a program. Many agencies, World Travel, et cetera, have their own program too. At ASTA, what we do is create education that we believe leads to the next step, which is the uniqueness that can be provided by, for example, World Travel, the uniqueness that can be provided by any other travel agency, whether corporate or otherwise, so that you don't have to worry about, if you will, the commonality in terms of training needs that exists up front and applies to everybody regardless. So we look to take care of that and then turn the student over to you, the various agencies, to then if you will, work with them on how your company is different from others and your own training mechanisms and skills that are needed. So.
Awesome. All right, so for our final question, I call this the world peace question. So if you could solve an outstanding opportunity or issue in the travel industry, why would we never speak of NDC ever again? No, I'm kidding. What would you tackle, and how would you do that?
So how many people have heard of this thing called NDC? It's kind of a new term, isn't it? Yeah. Well, yeah. I've been
What's
focused.
NDC? No.
What's NDC? New distribution capability. I've been focused on it from the very beginning, really 12, I think, what is it now, 12, 14, or 30 years in the making. But really from an ASTA perspective, I would just say that, ASTA is fully supportive of NDC. Contrary to what some of you may think, we are indeed very supportive of the initiative. Two things I would say. We just want to make sure that everybody is ready. Everybody has the capability to adopt it in whatever means is necessary, whether through corporate travel, through the TMC community, through the mid-office community, through the airline community as well, all of which are important. And it's all about readiness. So we would say today that it is not ready for prime time. There's obviously more work to be done on all sides. And I think we'll never speak of it again once that readiness is complete. And I would predict that it's going to happen, and it's going to happen relatively soon. And soon we won't be talking about NDC at all. That's my view on the NDC topic, which I wanted to share. But I think we've touched on already today, again, from my view, where the big opportunity that we, and I personally, you can see from my title, Industry Affairs and Education. The education piece is what's huge to me, and I've kind of talked quite a bit about it already today in terms of what we want to do at ASTA to grow it and make it key and important so that we can indeed populate the travel agency community with skilled travel advisors, and again, doing it in a way that leads up to our, if you will, turnover of the trained advisors to you and your agencies so that you can then work with them on your own specific differentiated educational programs as well. So it's, aside from getting beyond NDC and never hearing the term again,
Never speak
never
of it
speaking
again.
It's all about education.
I will go. So I hope I don't get too radical on this. And I'm much more narrow than, but it really plays into something very similar in terms of NDC. But what I would solve, and Rebecca brought this up in her talk, and I think it's something that we deal with every single day as travel buyers and as suppliers, I would solve for loyalty. I would try to find a way to bring loyalty and travel management together so that they are not in conflict. And I think that on the supplier side, there is so much focus on loyalty that could benefit corporate travel, but we have to find a way to share the customer and to find transparency. I know there are data issues. I know there's privacy issues. I think we can jump over those hurdles. I think there are ways. But I believe that loyalty and providing corporate travel as a benefit and as a club and as a collection of, positioned as a collection of perks, gets compliance, it gets results, and it gets happy travelers who have a better experience. So if I could solve for anything in our industry right now, and I think NDC has a big role in this, and I think technology has a big role in this, and I think data has a big role in this, so we all have to get on the technology train to achieve this, but loyalty and corporate travel should not be at odds with each other.
Okay, so in addition to never speaking of NDC again, maybe never speak of bleisure again?
Come on.
I'm just kidding. Blended travel bleisure, it's here to stay. I guess, okay, long-term moonshot, I would love to see every buyer and supplier organization figure out what role they play in the travel industry's stated goal of becoming climate neutral, or carbon neutral, I should say, by 2050. And I think every supplier and buyer has a role to play in that. But we also have to figure out how we continue to grow this industry. And so for me, it's about sustainable growth. It's not about looking backward where we came from COVID, it's about looking forward. And how do we as an industry come together and figure out how do we make travel, business travel more intentional, more impactful, and really start talking about the return on investment of business travel. Business travel as a force for good, as a growth driver for businesses, for economies, for professional careers. And I think if we focus on those things and we keep kind of sustainable growth top of mind, we'll be really well positioned for the next 27 years.
Awesome. All right, let's open it up to some questions. Does anyone have any questions for our panel?
All right, so you have access, all three of you, to so much information and trends and data points and travel managers. Is there something out there as we're preparing for Gen Z, right? 2033, I think, is the year where Gen Z will be the largest sort of corporate or consuming generation ever, at least here in the United States. Are you seeing that companies are trending differently in the way they want to prepare for that? Some companies have even gone as far as to say that now their corporate travel policies are being used to attract new talent, to keep new talent. So what would you think are some of the trends that you're seeing or that you have had access to?
I have access to trends. Okay. I cannot say that this is specifically about Gen Z. I have not done a Gen Z research project, but I can tell you trends about younger workers in the workplace and their expectations of what a travel program should provide. And I think number one, safety and security. Gen Z, I believe, is very concerned with their personal safety because they've grown up in a world that is maybe feels less constant than some of our other generations. They also are, I'm going to say it again, very into loyalty. And I think the convergence of travel programs and loyalty will be very important to attract this generation. They have every coffee card, they have, it is currency to that generation, and they look at it as part of their total, maybe their total worth, maybe their total value in the marketplace. So it's spent like money. Bleisure, sorry, man. I think every single one of us likes bleisure, whether we like the word or not. We are able to, and I think this plays into sustainability as well. We are able to leverage our corporate travel, our business travel, to have a better life. And that generation is gonna be about, I want that better life. And to be able to have the policies in place in your organization, to be able to have the convergence with loyalty, to be able to be aware of sustainability, and to be able to offer those safety and security pillars in your program are going to be the things that make these travelers feel appreciated and safe and ready to roll. So I think those four areas are things you're going to have to really, really pay attention to.
You know, if you add to that the complexity factor as well, that travel today is all the more complex. I think that, for example, some of the research that we've done on the ASTA side has shown that over a quarter of our agencies have found that 50% of their customers are using a travel advisor for the first time. And that's whether it's leisure or corporate. What that tells us is that there is the need, again, from this complexity perspective, but also from a need for safety and protection perspective. For many reasons, the need for that connection with an advisor is all the stronger. So, yeah, I think that that would be a good example of why it's so key and important to stay focused on the product and skill that you offer and bring to the customer, buyer, and otherwise.
Can I just add a little nugget to that? And this has been quite a number of years ago that BTN did this research, but we did do sort of a generation-based research project, and again, it's been a few years ago, but the youngest generation was the first generation who wanted to self-serve, but if the self-serve didn't work, they were immediately going to an agent because they did not want to go through the steps, the pain, to figure it out. So
It's
that
too hard.
it's too hard. So yeah, so I do think that it's really interesting. It's like, yes, we want to self-serve until the instant it doesn't work, and then we want to be on the phone with a person or on some texting, then we're not going to be on the phone.
We had a travel manager at our client advisory board joke that she was just going to write her travel policy in emojis because they just don't read it. And she's like, maybe they'll get it if I just use emojis. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I think there's a great opportunity for a research study, actually, so that's a great question. I think I'd only add two things. I think that youngest generation tends to value experiences over things, and therefore I think that does bode well for blended travel or bleisure is not a passing fad, it's something that's gonna be around for a while. And then the communication. They're the always-on generation, so how you communicate with them and kind of giving them the capacity to communicate with you through their preferred channel is gonna be very, very important, which means text message.
It's also a duty of care, right? So I think a lot of, it's both, you know, it's Gen X, it's millennials, it's everybody. Duty of care, especially today, given the complexity of travel, having just gone through the pandemic, who's gonna help me at, you know, midnight when I'm traveling in Europe or or Asia and something goes wrong? I can't necessarily do it myself. I don't know what to do. So I know from a corporate travel perspective, the whole notion of duty of care is so key and important. Who do I rely on to make a change, whether a flight, a hotel, whatever might be needed? And that, I think, has become even more emphasized than ever.
Awesome. Are there any other questions? We have one right up here.
Thank you. My name is Allison Baker, and as Laura has said before, you know, I was a procurement professional who was plopped into travel about 1.5 years ago, and I have seen that's kind of been the trend post-pandemic is travel is falling into the hands of people who had no idea there was a whole world behind the world just travel. So how would you recommend that these new procurement professionals who are now managing corporate travel programs speak to their leadership about sponsoring and supporting employees to join GBTA, to join ASTA? They don't understand the value, they don't see it, and so how can we really present it to them on how it's beneficial for the company to have an employee part of these organizations?
You know, that's a really good question and an extraordinarily difficult one to answer because, again, as you heard me say earlier, our membership at ASTA, I'm not sure about GBTA, but it may well be the same. Our membership climbed exorbitantly during the course of the pandemic because we were greatly needed by the agency community. But it's almost like out of sight, out of mind sometimes too. And so we're constantly talking to our leadership within our travel agency member community to say, please help us from a grassroots perspective, tout the value of belonging to the travel association, keeping in mind that, for example, ASTA, just like GBTA, is a nonprofit organization. You know, we're not flowing in funds and money tremendously. You might be surprised to learn how many employees or people actually work for ASTA. It's roughly 30 people. We appear to be maybe a team of 300, but we're not. So without that support, we can't provide the advocacy and the resource on Capitol Hill, at the White House, within the industry, with suppliers where change is needed to support people. So getting that word out is extremely important. And I would say it's incumbent on everybody in this room to help not just ASTA and GBTA in doing that, but to help yourselves by spreading that word and encouraging your fellow advisors new to the industry to look at joining the likes of ASTA and GBTA.
Allison, was it Allison? Yeah. I think really it's about, you know, it gets back to giving you the information you need to be successful in that new role. I mean, where else are you going to turn if there's no one else in your organization who's done travel management before and now you've been tasked with it, whether it's ASTA or BTN or us, there's information out there. I think the reason why it's beneficial to join an association is we bring the ecosystem together. So we have the suppliers on one side and the buyers on the other. So you have the capacity to network with your peers. the travel buyers and the procurement folks, learn from them. But you also have all the suppliers on the other side, which gives you visibility into what's happening in the marketplace. So as a procurement professional, obviously you're going to be measured on cost savings and return on investment. So we bring that community together for learning and for networking, and also to give you the leverage and the tools you need to be more successful in your role. And it's like less than $400 a year, so I'm pretty sure they'll
That's true.
prove it.
They said membership is cheap, right? It's not expensive.
Yeah.
Can I just weigh in? I mean, I would go way more narrow, and I would focus on duty of care and the cost of duty of care and what happens if something goes wrong. Because your $400 membership and your $200 membership, and how much does it cost to attend in the convention?
For members, it's about $1,000.
So let's talk about $1,600 versus open-ended emergency funds. I mean, do the research on, talk to any other travel buyer who has had an emergency situation, crunch the numbers, do the comparison, and say, these are the people that I can talk to in this membership, and I need to be there because I will safeguard this company.
Allison, if that doesn't work, let me add him. I'll come with him. No, I'm kidding. All right, everyone. Well, thank you all so much. Let's give a round of applause for our amazing